How much fentanyl do you think it would take to kill an adult human being? How much do you think it would actually be? Is it like a gram? Is it an ounce? Is it half a kilo? It's this much. Just 6 grains of salt. That's it. That's all it takes. If this was real fentanyl, it would be enough to kill me and our camera guy. We'd need to have a hazmat suit on just to be able to treat this properly. Now you can imagine what that means when all of a sudden here in Calgary, we had a bust of 8 kilograms of this stuff. 8 kilograms is enough to kill 4 million Canadians. That's a tenth of our country. And this isn't just theoretical numbers. Nearly 50,000 Canadians have been killed because of this poison in the last decade alone. It's been the biggest killer of BC kids. 50,000 people dead in the last decade. That's equivalent to how many Canadians died in the Second World War. This is the result of bad decisions made by radical, ideological government. Here's 3 ways that I think about it. The first is the radical ideology of the safe supply of opioids to Canadians. It has now metastasized into one of the biggest killers this country has ever known. This is taxpayer-funded drugs being offered up to the streets. The government has become the dealer. And in doing so, the government has compromised countless lives, destroyed countless families.
With controversy raging in Victoria over the extent to which doctor-prescribed opioids are being diverted into the street trade, we hit the streets of Vancouver Friday to find out what was really happening.
So here's what happened. It took us about half an hour on East Hastings Street, and we were able to buy 26 tablets. We're told this is hydromorphone, also known as Dillies, also known as Dilaudid.
These drugs get diverted by criminals across our country to replaced with fentanyl and other hard drugs. This has been well documented by police officials who have watched this unsafe supply of hard drugs go from government dealer sites right into the hand of criminals.
Diverted safe supply is being resold into our community. It's being trafficked into other communities, and it is being used as currency in exchange for fentanyl, fueling the drug trade.
We've seen safe supply sites being opened up in neighborhoods where school children play nearby. Entire fields have to be inspected by parents before kids can go out and play soccer or football or just enjoy the day with their friends. Which brings me to my second point. This country has had a radical, ideological, NDP liberal government that has been obsessed with the rights of the criminal over the rights of Canadians to have a safe community in which they can raise their families and live their lives. The policy of bail over jail has just created an environment where you have the same violent criminals reoffending multiple times a day, creating chaos and disorder across our streets. So imagine that. You have the safe supply of drugs and an oversupply of hardened criminals. You combine that together and you see the crisis that our country is now enduring. And finally, the third point. These 2 policy failures, which compromise our kids and empower hardened criminals, exist in an ecosystem in which international crime now flourishes across our streets. These 3 groups, traffickers, dictators, terrorists, they don't necessarily share a similar ideology, but they share a common currency of blood. Look at the labs that we see in our news stories about what's happening in these sites. These are massive facilities that require major infrastructure.
I cannot understate the sophistication. Sophisticated by virtue of its size, by virtue of the type of equipment and the setup.
The sophistication of these labs are not an accident. They require massive amounts of investment and capital to get them set up and running, infrastructure to bring in components of fentanyl from the Communist Party of China affiliated criminal activities. They require massive amounts of logistics to move product around the country, instruments that require the kind of capacity of Latin American drug cartels, and they require massive amount of logistics, people, to get this illicit industry to thrive in this country. This isn't an accident. This has taken decisions that has allowed this environment to flourish across our country. So when we see 8 kilograms of this stuff being seized here in Calgary, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So what do we do about this? Common sense. Take the unsafe supply of hardened drugs off our streets and away from our kids. We go after the criminals, jail, not bail, for repeat violent offenders. And for those who are trafficking in this illicit drug, killing the lives of Canadians, destroying families, destroying the fabric of our country, life sentences for those trafficking in fentanyl to make sure that they can never again reoffend on our streets and are held accountable for the mass murder they are committing knowingly upon our people.
I've been using, it's actually funny, well not funny, it's terrible. I remember the day the fentanyl came out and my dealer said, you know, I've got these new pills, they're fake oxys. He didn't tell me they were fentanyl because nobody knew what fentanyl was yet. He just said they're 100 times stronger and they're only $5 more. And I was just like, okay.
The dealing of fentanyl is not some trivial crime. They knowingly commit this crime. It is a mass murder, and it has to be treated with the fullest extent that the law provides. Fighting this is not for the faint-hearted or the morally confused. It requires decisive leadership. It requires leaders with the courage and the conviction to fix the problem, to fix Canada. It requires common sense conservatives and Pierre Poilievre to get the job done.